Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, all our respected visiting professors of Central University of Orissa, my esteemed colleagues from different departments, Dr. Paghunath Bhai, our public relation officer, all non-teaching staff, dear students, members of media, ladies and gentlemen. On the occasion of Vigilance Awareness Week 2020, this webinar has been arranged. At the outset, I welcome all our honored guests. I welcome Dr. Akshay Kumar Rao. He is, because he is a family member to us, he is our visiting professor. But we are extremely happy that we have got a person like Dr. Akshay Kumar Rao who is going to deliver. He is not only the former Director General of Swachh Bharat Mission, he is taking responsibility of lot many things we will discuss later. And we are fortunate that he is with us since around a year. Central University of Orissa is our visiting professor, an advisor and mentor to Central University in various matters. Thank you, sir. I welcome you to this webinar. I am also welcoming Mr. Prasanna Kumar Das, former Special Secretary and member, Central Board of Direct Taxes, Ministry of Finance. We are extremely thankful and welcome you, sir, to our webinar. I also welcome all our visiting professors, all our colleagues, and dear students to this webinar. Friends, we know that the Central Vigilance Commission is the apex anti-corruption body of the country and endeavors to promote. Yes. It endeavors to promote integrity, transparency, and accountability in public life. Observance of Vigilance Awareness Week every year is a part of multi-pronged approach of the Commission, where the strategy is to encourage all stakeholders to collectively participate in the preventive vigilance measures and fight against corruption, raise public awareness regarding the existence and gravity of and threat posed by corruption. The Central Vigilance Commission has decided that this year, the Vigilance Awareness Week will be observed 27th October to 2nd November, and the Central University of Orissa, under the guidance and leadership of our Vice Chancellor Professor Ram Brahma, who has recently joined in our webinar. Sir, good afternoon and welcome you to this webinar, sir.
Thank you.
The Central University of Orissa has observed this Vigilance Awareness Week with all manners befitting and possible. We have taken all the employees and staff have taken a place on 27th of October for eradicating and taking awareness on corruption, as well as to make our students aware and participate. A quiz competition was also organized with a theme, India and Prosperous India. This has been done. And in Central University of Orissa, we have been striving our best under the leadership of the Vice Chancellor to see that we lead a corruption-free administration and we can provide the best of things possible to our employees and to the students. With these words, I welcome you all again, and I now request our esteemed Vice Chancellor to say a few words on the occasion of this and to inaugurate this webinar. Vice Chancellor, sir.
Thank you, Professor Balita. I welcome principal speakers, Professor Akshay Kumar, our respected visiting professor, former Director General of Election Commission of India, Shri P.K. Das Ji, Special Secretary, Finance, Government of India, and member of the Central Board of Direct Taxes. Sir, we deem it a privilege to welcome you, sir, to our institute, to our university, which is only a decade-old university. It is now trying to make a turnaround with the help of illustrious civil servants like you and Professor Akshay Rao ji. Well, I can't educate a very senior civil servant like you about the importance of observance of Vigilance Day. I am a teacher of public policy. I continue to remain so. We regard vigilance political science students call it vigilance is price of democracy, but public administration students look at it as a sine qua non for efficient and effective functioning of a number of public institutions across the country. Since independence till now, a rapid expansion of government's functioning has placed an additional burden on the bureaucracy to see that minimum norms are observed. Despite this, I think, looking back, I think we have done reasonably well in terms of development. There is an observation by a social scientist that development itself generates corruption. And we quote several studies. One of our very senior professors, former Director General of NCRI, Professor Durga Prasad is also here, sociologist and a well-known social scientist. I hope he was associated with National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayat Raj for a long time. A number of studies have revealed that in our country, vigilance is a must there. For the record's sake, sir, since I still suffer from the traits of a teacher, I wish to just present like this. As we observe Central Vigilance Week between October 27th and November 2nd, under Vigilant India, Prosperous India echoes the sentiment of how being vigilant leads to prosperity of the nation. The Honorable Prime Minister emphasized that tackling corruption is just not the responsibility of any single agency or institution, but it is a collective responsibility. In addition, he called for a holistic approach to fight corruption. One of the requirements for this is strengthening vigilance at every level there. The week-long events, this vigilance in our university reiterated how important it is for our functioning and for all the universities functioning. It promotes culture of integrity, also improves efficiency. This is being taken, it helps us to contribute to the development of the country. As the integrity pledge reiterates, sir, it is essential for all of us to be vigilant and commit to highest standards of honesty and integrity at all times and support to fight against corrupt practices. This is our resolve, sir. We are happy that you joined our discussion and the debate there. First of it, I now request Professor Akshay Kumar Rao to initiate the dialogue, maybe 10-15 minutes, followed by maybe a quick question and answers, if any, or proceed to Shri Das, Shri P.K. Das ji. Professor Akshay Kumar ji.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor, sir. And today is an occasion in which I feel very privileged because I am protected above me and below me by an elder brother like Dr. Rama Brahmam and by a younger brother like Mr. Prasanna Das, who both, in my limited understanding, are personalities of integrity. And that's why I feel very good speaking on the Vigilance Awareness Day, that I am above me and below me are two persons whom I can quickly certify as persons of high integrity and befitting personalities to be among on the Vigilance Awareness Week and the conclusion of it. Now, having said that, Dr. Palita, my colleague, and
Please tell me.
am I audible, please?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Dr. Palita, Dr. Durga Prasad, my esteemed colleagues and all the colleagues of the university, dear students, and everyone. So today is an occasion for introspection for all of us. Vigilance Day, according to me, is not a day of good procedures. It's a day for introspection of all of us. Whether it is a university or a department or a state or a country, we must introspect today. Have we been vigilant all these days? Have we been able to take control and command and security of all the resources that we have in hand? So today is the day of introspection. the lower the resources are, like our university is a small university, we do not have a lot of money to squander, the more occasion to introspect. Because we can't just squander, we don't have money to squander. So we have to protect each and every pie that we have in hand. And that requires a higher amount of vigilance. I am a very practical person. The VC knows it. And my dear friend and my brother and my colleague in arms, Mr. Prasanna Das also knows it. He has been himself one of the distinguished tax administrators that the country has, and a person of high integrity, and he has gone up to the right of the highest level that the tax administration provides. I'm sure he will share with you, because anyone who handles finance perhaps is more qualified to talk about vigilance. But I will talk a few things, raise a few points, perhaps certain clues, which will help Prasanna and others to dwell a little more on this matter. I look at vigilance at three levels. First is the ordinary activity level, in the sense that, do we have good procedures? Do we have vigilance checks and balances in a department or in a university campus? Are these being followed? Have we brought in technology to make sure that our vigilance is good? Have we checked on the integrity of our each and every staff and employee at the time of recruitment, and the way we build their capacity to make sure that they follow the integrity on the shop floor level? So these are procedures and processes of every day. And these are important. These are important because any laxity on any of this could lead to some type of disorder. We had a prime minister long time ago who said that out of every rupee that is spent, only 10 or 15 paisa reaches the village. And we have others also who have made difficult comments like this on the type of issues that we have in this country. And the answer perhaps is vigilance. So do we have in any big program, mission, department, whether Prasanna's tax administration, the university administration which the vice chancellor runs, do we have checks and balances, procedures? Have we got technology to make it more efficient? Or do we need to go for more technology which is abundantly available? Right up to the artificial intelligence. That's one. Number two, I link vigilance to outcome. Are we going to get the country rid of corruption? Because Dr. Palita just now said, in fact, the Central Vigilance Commission has announced that the policy is zero tolerance to corruption. The overall aim is to get the country rid of corruption. It is a bloody termite. Termite which eats into every bed in our bedroom. We don't have any bed to sleep because termites eat up every bed and every bench that we have. Rats come and plunder every little godown that we have. We don't have any other grains, paddy to eat to feed our people. So the corruption, I am not going to link it to particular years or decades of it. I think we have suffered enough. Has the time come to make it undermines everything. It undermines our political democracy. It undermines the election system. It undermines the economic development. It undermines what is guaranteed to us by the Constitution, that is liberty and equality. If we are talking about a new India, it has to be a fair and equal India at all. In this connection, I see the vigilance as a humanist issue. As a humanist issue. I have a very human approach to the science and the art of vigilance. Because if a mosquito is sucking away blood, it is just sucking away the poor man's blood. That is what corruption is all about. I mean, we are losing out our little, this money, we are trustees. The government is a trustee, the vice chancellor is a trustee, the tax administration is a trustee of the wealth of the people of India. If that is being siphoned off in corruption, then it is a humanist problem. Our people are fed less. They are sheltered less. They are educated less. They are given facilities of sanitation and water less because we have a plundered economy. We have not been vigilant enough to protect and secure our resources. So I see it as outcome. This is the second level of interpretation that I have, which is linked to the outcome of eradication of corruption. So it's really big because Once we just take it as a small procedure of vigilance department, vigilance procedure, CVO, vigilance case, vigilance file, it all looks small. But if you look at the overall outcome and the impact, it is really big. It's a humanist problem. It can save or ruin a country. And that's what we have been facing in India. And I'm sure as we progress with someone as efficient and knowledgeable as Prasanna and others, will dwell on this matter. The third and final level at which I see this, that is the higher level. It's a philosophical level. I look at vigilance as a matter of consciousness, which I think the VC was trying to hint a little bit. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. I must be vigilant. I am a protector of my own. I must be vigilant at my home, in my own residential area, in my office, in my department. All must have a vigilance consciousness. We must always be careful looking around. It's not the job of Vice Chancellor alone, or the Prime Minister of the country alone, or Chief Minister of a state, or the CBDT chairman or CBDT member alone. No, not at all. It's a matter of being conscious, being careful, being always looking around that if things are going wrong. As a teacher, as a student, as a non-academic staff in the university, as a citizen, I must be always careful around. Is something wrong happening? If I am conscious of my rights, I must be conscious of my responsibilities. Are my rights and responsibilities being eroded? Am I doing my responsibilities well? I have to be a vigilant citizen. This is called the eternal vigilance, which is the price of the liberty, which we have got with a lot of difficulty. And liberty is no liberty unless I have an eye for something going wrong and the ability to prevent it. That is why the whole phrase in this year of preventive vigilance has come. This is preventive vigilance. If something wrong happens, after that we will have a disaster rehabilitation. We'll have something, okay, some theft has taken place, fire has taken place, we are trying to do something to cure it. But that doesn't help. We must have enough of preventive vigilance. Fortunately, we are in the 21st century in which, under new economic policy and under our technology policy, under digitization, we have enough scope and arrangements, logistics and wherewithals in which we can strengthen our vigilance. But more important is not the wherewithals, the will. The vigilance is a state of mind which doesn't have to be remembered and doesn't have to be celebrated through seminars, webinars, books and literature and brochures in 1 week in a year. We have to be from day one. I mean, it's not only the VC or the registrar or the security officer or someone who handles administration, the vigilance files. It is whose responsibility? It is the responsibility of you, me, and everyone. Are we looking at it that way? So now I would not like to, because this is something which I'm very passionate about, which we call the responsibility of all of us. So I'm not going to dwell more on that. I know that there is more precious observations on this will come from Prasanna and others as well. Very happy, very grateful, Prasanna, that you agreed to join us on this very important day, which has a relevance to the body of work that you have done. I also recall as DG Expenditure and Election Commission, the amount of work that you have done. You know, if you do surgery, some blood will drip, but that doesn't matter. Really, that doesn't matter. Let the blood drip. But if we have to do a surgery to cure a cancer, we must do it. And the starting point of everything is vigilance, the conscious of vigilance, the action of vigilance, and our focus on the outcome of vigilance. I look at this whole thing this way. And if we are talking about, like, I'll close my observations with one example. We are all talking about a vaccine for corona, right? I'm sure, God willing, the vaccine will come sooner than later. And all of us will be healthy for all time to come. And our future generations will be protected. But have you seen that that already there is some amount of wrong activity started around vaccine development? Business interests, political interests, ultra-nationalist interests have shrouded the vaccine. So this requires also a vigilance of mind. How to basically, vigilance is separating correct from incorrectness, correctness from incorrectness. Even on a vaccine development, vaccine distribution, vaccine sharing, we must As a nation, as people, we must make sure that nothing incorrect happens. That is why I said vigilance is nothing in my, it is one of the most humanist in my understanding. It is one of the most humanist points. I look at vigilance from this approach. On this day, I have this approach to set. And of course, I may not have too much of knowledge of the intricacies of vigilance, departmental implementation, all that. But I think my mind is very clear, and my mind is very clear about how I should be a vigilant citizen, a vigilant professional if I am. And with this, I just hand it over to the other important speakers, and eminently Sri P.K. Dash, who is among us. And this is how I look at, and if I have been able to leave some thoughts in the minds of all my colleagues and friends and audience in the webinar, I am very grateful. Thank you very much for giving me a chance.
Thank you, Professor Raut. You made a very important observations. And, it is your for promotion and propagation of vigilance culture. Yes, this is very important, very important insights. I don't like to stand between a very eminent administrator, Sri Prasanna Kumar Das ji. Namaskar, sir. Welcome to our university, and we continue to bother you with occasional requests for an advice or a lecture here and there. Now, may I request you, sir, to share your views on the significance of Vigilance Day and how universities can promote this?
Thanks, Professor Ram Brahmam. My dear friend and elder brother, Mr. Professor Raut, Professor Palita, and my dear friends. Mr. Raut has raised a very important point. Am I audible?
Yes.
I'm in a very low networked area. I am such a low network person, but added to that, I'm a little bit low network in Gurgaon. So my voice may be breaking at times. I don't know, this internet is not giving a good service. Anyhow, so that corruption is like a termite which eats into the social fabric is a very important statement he has made. Very profound statement, because corruption, you see the etymology of corruption, that it has come from the word corruptus. It's a Latin word which means to break. This is the social fabric side which you don't know, and once you realize, you open the door, see that nothing is there, only some safes or structures are there, but everything is eaten away. Similarly, corruption eats into the social fabric, which is a malady, which is the biggest malaise of the society. Now, the remedy for that is ethics. What do you mean by ethics? A matter of habit. We must have a matter of habit. Then only corruption can be checked, or corruption. It leads to me to another, this corollary, that honesty cannot be mandated. It has to come as a matter of habit. So these are all. I wanted to clarify before I come to the topic, that vigilant India and prosperous India. Now, this topic gives an idea, or gives you an impression, that if you are vigilant India, you will become prosperous. Vigilant India and prosperous India, they are both, they can exist together, and without one, the other cannot come. But friends, if you take the history, even Kautilya in Arthashastra talks about this, he elaborately dealt with the vigilance Arthashastra, and he says it is very difficult as a fish drinks water. When he drinks water, when he is not drinking water, as you cannot know. Similarly, to check corruption is very difficult. That is 300 BC, Kautilya talking about corruption. Similarly, have gone through this phase, it means that without vigilance or without, then the country cannot prosper. Sometimes doubts, let's say, it is one of the countries in the Pacific region. Of course, India is the most corrupt country in the Asia Pacific region, but China is no less. So some statistics they give that it is almost 67% of people they pay bribe in China, and it is a highly corrupt country. But at the same time, it is a prosperous country now. If we talk to see our own country, there are few states. If we intersect, compare the states in India, there are states where the corruption index is also very high. Of course, nobody has rated, nobody has come up with such corruption barometer. Feel it from few index from few areas that the corruption index is very. The election funding, the election expenditure in Tamil Nadu, bribing the voters is the highest. I was DG election expenditure. In fact, the seizure we make during election from the Tamil Nadu state is 10 times more than all seizure together from all other states. So that shows that it is one of the state which is highly, I should say it is the corruption should be higher because this is the position which is manifested during election time. But at the same time, you find that all human development index the state is higher. Like let's talk of in education, let's talk of health facility, let's talk of road and other infrastructures. It's a quite high. So sometimes it gives doubt to your mind whether without vigilance can there be prosperity. So these are the few questions which I put to the audience to answer, to think over whether whether this corruption sometimes leads to prosperity or the corruption is a hindrance for prosperity. So I'll as I proceed in my lecture, we'll come to the maybe nearing to the conclusion because I can't say conclusively that something is correct or something is wrong, but we can near the conclusion, nearing the the proposition that I have raised. Now, this corruption said cannot be mandated. It depends on the value system. The value and which value it is, which value is more important? Is it is a fellow a city pavement dweller, a slum dweller, or is it value of a public office, value of the ruler? Which value is more important? We cannot mandate, as I have said, we cannot mandate honesty to anybody. But at the same time, whose honesty is more important in this case? Of a ruler, honesty of a public servant, or honesty of a corporate, or honesty of a city dweller, or slum dweller, or normal citizen? Whose honesty is more important for a country, for its prosperity? It's been said much earlier by none else than Maharishi Valmiki. In Ramayana, he says, which means that the if the king is good, the citizens will be good. Now this statement brings us closer to Plato, who in ideal state says that the wise fellows should be the rulers. He says the wise people should be the rulers. And he also goes on to add, if the punishment for the wise people will be more if they suffer under foolish people, and if they suffer because they have not joined the joined in ruling the state. So the second statement is more profound. If the wise people do not join the ruling, then the suffering given to them will be much more, and they will suffer more than when they are being ruled by non-wise people or maybe little less intelligent people. So this is what Plato says about the political. So from this, I can honesty of the rulers is more important. Of course, others are important, but honesty of the political rulers, is more important. And in this context, Gandhi has said, not talk of vigilance without quoting Gandhi. Gandhi says, after First World War, he was saying, ki, remaking the world, that is a myth. Rather, remaking ourselves is more important. So remaking ourselves is rebuilding our value system, rebuilding our internal ethics so that we can prosper better. That is what Purna Swaraj can be achieved. That is what Gandhiji says. So with this, we can say that yes, the corruption or the corrupt political ruler is more important, but the entire community, the citizens, is also equally important, because in a democracy, as John Stuart Mill says, you get the government you deserve. John Stuart Mill says in democracy, you get the government you deserve. If we are bad, then naturally our representative will be bad, political ruler will be bad. So it is imperative that we, not only the citizens, but the rulers, all should have positive value and ethics so that our state can prosper. Now, coming to few concepts like on ethics, India has made several attempts. One was done by our former Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri by putting Santanam Committee, which has dealt with this topic elaborately and has recommended several steps. Now, more recent is the Birappa Moili Committee, Administrative Reforms Committee, which was set up in 2005, I think. That has also dealt with this topic very elaborately. And Birappa Moili says in that committee report, the beginning para itself says that vigilance is not only an ethical imperative, but it's a necessity, economic necessity for the country. That sums up the whole debate. That gives the rise, that emphasizes the importance for the development of the country. He has gone on to say, that committee report says, that if there is corruption in the state, the GDP cannot grow at that rate as it is expected. So corruption is an important deterrent for the development of any state. I can say, though there may be development in states like which are not that vigilant, but that development is not very it is very short-lived, because the internal ethics, anytime it can be taken away, washed off by one or two measures, and they can be exposed. For example, I'll give you a few case studies, like the Imelda Marcos case of Philippines. Till UN came off, this fellow was looting the revenue of the country Philippines, and now after his going, you can see the growth of Philippines is much higher than what it happened during that Marcos period. Gunnar Myrdal, in his book Asian Drama, also talks about a concept called Banana Republic. Banana Republic, he identifies as those which have no formal institutions, or institutions are pliable, though they are a structure, but these are pliable. This is very important. Now, how do we inculcate value? And once inculcating value, will it sustain itself and become permanent? It will come. So this has been dealt with by also Birappa Moily committee. It says not only values but sustainability of the institution should be there. The institutional morality, the institutional base should be strong so that the values can be sustained and can be changed. This issue, this questions to Dr. Ambedkar, that when writing such a big constitution, one of the very voluminous, he was asked why including so many things like directive principle of state policy, then you have giving judge. Why? And his reply, constitution. Still, I am doubtful it can fail, because if the persons manning it do not abide by the values, then the whole constitution will fail. In this context, I will remind you that the Election Commission of Pakistan is much more powerful than the Election Commission of India. The same day, both ours was 15, theirs was 14. The election commissions were thought of or they were executed. But what has happened in Pakistan? You can see, because the commission did not perform the job that is expected of them, because since manning it did not perform the role that was expected of them. So, although we have a sustainable institution, but the value system was not there, or they were not allowed to perform. I do not know what is the background, or we can, but it is true that the persons manning the commission or the elections were not performing the job well. That is why people lost hope in the whole election process. We are living in a country which is surrounded by all countries where democracy has not taken roots. Ours is the most largest functional democracy. We are surrounded by Pakistan. Go little off, we have Afghanistan. Little off, we have China. Little down, we have Myanmar. We have little down Bangladesh, and last Sri Lanka. Except Sri Lanka to some extent, most of the countries democracy has not taken roots. In Asian region, democracy has not taken roots. And with much difficulty, thanks to our forefathers, for our constitutional framers and freedom fighters, the democracy has taken roots, and some of the institutions have performed. I will not say the 100%, but at a great extent they have performed. That is why probably our democracy sustained. Now, what is the reason why this faltering? Some points why this faltering happens. This also has been identified by Birappa Moily committee. It says that one of the reason is the our British legacy, where everything was not transparent. That was the reason, and with the right to information, we have little bit of transparency in our society. Now, second is, I think, it's or I do not know. I can conclude 5 minutes.
Yes.
5 minutes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the I was talking about this thing. So now the political corruption is more important in our society, for which the Birappa Moily committee says the election funding, paid news, which Professor Raut was handling in election commission, and during his time, the first candidate in independent India, Umlesh Jadhav, was disqualified as a member of Legislative Assembly on the ground that paid news. He had brought out some news, and second case came after that was Ashok Chauhan. Third case came Narottam Misra, who were ministers, and the other was chief minister, and Madhu Koda. Fourth case, which were disqualified. In the independent India, for the first time, 4 elected candidates were disqualified on the ground that they have spent more money than what is reported by them. So this is the political corruption. The root of political corruption is election funding, and other means through which. And second is the criminalization of politics. Since election expenditure is so high, normal people keep away, and the people having money from doubtful means can join politics and they rule us. And we again go back to Plato. We are ruled and we suffer under the rulers which are not should not have been ruler. Now coming back to being a taxman, the taxmen are always hated. I just wanted to tell you there is not a single society that loves a taxman. So I am very thankful to you that you have remembered a taxman and addressing you on vigilance and prosperity. Now I am talking a little about our department, what measures we have taken. When 100% as you file a return, you are called to the office for scrutiny. So gradually, we adopted a system called summary assessment. That and now 99 returns are accepted summarily. They are not called for any scrutiny. Of course, checking is done through computer. Computerization has been a big help, which was not possible earlier. And only 1% cases are picked up for scrutiny. Number two, we have a citizens charter, and citizens know under what date, under what this thing, what they expect from the government, from the return after filing, what they will do. And the citizens charter is strictly enforced. Third is we have a refund banker system. Earlier, we detected that some people, babus, and of course that was possible because computerization was not there. So we introduced refund banker. The entire return goes through to a bank, and banks passes to the account of the assessee. Fourth is the computerization. We have e-filing of the returns so that we don't have to. Earlier, it was manually. We are entering the entire data, and tax is nothing but collection of data, and on the basis of data, you collect taxes. If you have no information, your collection mechanism is weak. You cannot collect. That is why in the country, after e-filing, our rate of growth of tax collection is much higher. Well, our GDP is growing at 6, 7, or sometimes 8%. The rate of collection of direct taxes was more than 25%. Second, that in all countries, the proportion of direct tax, government has to collect tax. Any government can you think of any government which doesn't collect tax? I don't think you will not find a civilized government which doesn't collect tax and operate. Either they will collect through directly or indirectly. So in developed countries, the direct tax collection ratio to indirect tax is 60-40. Sometimes it is 70-30. In our country, unfortunately, it was direct tax was only 40 or 30%. Indirect tax was almost 20 to 60%. This is a asymmetry which brings in indirect tax. A poor man is taxed, for example, he purchases a matchbox, he pays that much of tax as me or Ambani or anybody else. But in direct tax, it taxes you progressively so that the poor men do not suffer under direct tax regime. That is why. But I'm happy to say now it is more than 50%. It is 51% direct tax and 49% indirect tax. So which has been possible because of the infrastructure and the vigilance mechanism that has been put in place. And finally, I know I cannot predict whether it is going to succeed or fail, but I can say this much: the intent behind this is that to check corruption to a measure extent, so that nobody will be called to office. Nobody knows who is the assessing officer. An anonymous officer will pass the order, and you will make the computation of your income. So these are the steps which I think you will not be interested to know more about the tax department, which is not very liked by any citizen. But at the same time, I thought since you have called me as a taxman, it's my duty to say something about the measures that we have taken. We have a very strong vigilance wing. Our DG Vigilance is of the rank of Special Secretary to Government of India. He's a very and in each region there is a vigilance wing, strong vigilance presence. And to conclude, I will say that corruption is not only a story of India, it is bothering all countries, including the developed countries. You can you might have heard about the Ramsay MacDonald who resigned. Of course, the enforcement is very strong. That is why they are developed. Now you answer. President India, for example, Ramsay MacDonald had to resign because of that scam that he just gave this criminal charges or against some persons. This government withdrew just this ground that he had to resign as Prime Minister of UK. Similarly, Tony Blair ministry, a minister had telephoned for a visa, accepting the visa of someone, and that came to public, and he had to resign. Similarly, Watergate, you might have heard about it. Ronald Reagan, the president of US, had to resign on Watergate because some slush fund has come into his election campaign. Here I can say that in India, this slush fund is slush in entire election funding. Now, the transparency, the name of transparency has been taken away. The corporates donate to the political parties. Earlier, they used to disclose what amount they have donated to which party, but now that is taken away. I do not know how far it will help ethics and how far it will check corruption. But to my mind, this is a step which is very retrograde, which will promote crony capitalism, which will promote slush funds, which will promote this political scandals and kleptocracy in the administration. And I only simply pray that sometime we realize that this is not a thing and we restore the transparency. Transparency is the only answer to the entire problem. If the citizens are informed about the happenings, about the rules, about the actions taken, the majority of our problem is taken care. Otherwise, we will be a good people in a bad country or bad people in a good country. Thank you.
We transparent we are, better for the system there. Perhaps the section 3 of, I think, RTI wanted proactive disclosure about a number of aspects relating to the functioning of a public organization there. Well, we are marching towards a better India. Maybe there are many challenges there. There are some big questions now. Perhaps the both distinguished speakers would be happy to answer. Otherwise, I will be requesting Durga Prasad to sum up and give his concluding observations and close the session.
Another that we have organized a competition and we have to say something, and you have also welcome our
Very pointed questions. And to the speaker concerned. Okay, may I Prasad?
Sir, before Professor comes, I will request Ramendra Padil to say something about the quiz competition. And once he speaks, and he will also concentrate some students.
Who is that?
Sir, we had organized a quiz competition on
Right. Okay, we'll announce the prize. So I'm sorry. I thought. Amen.
So, sir, request Ramendra Kumar Padil, Dr. Ramendra Kumar Padil, Dean Student in charge. Okay. Ramendra. Yes, please. Give a brief of this. Yes, please.
It is the part of Vigilance Awareness Week 2020. Sir, an online quiz competition was organized between Sir Vibrant India and Prosperous India on 30th of this October. Sir, actually, as students in their respective home, COVID-19 situation, it was a little bit difficult also to organize, but as per the guidance of our Vice Chancellor, sir, we successfully organized the quiz competition through online mode. And for your kind information, sir, a total of 58 students participated through, and all the winners and participants will be provided certificates for their active participation in the competition. Now, I'd like to request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, please announce the name of the winners of the quiz competition.
Thank you, Ramendra. Quite a good response to our call for participation. I think first prize goes to Nikita Patnaik. Are they here? Nikita Patnaik? Nikita Patnaik. Okay. The
Let's give
second
it up for him.
prize, I think, is shared by 1, 2, 3, 4. These include, I think, Suchismita Sahu, Department of Education, Rudrashish Rath, Department of Mathematics, Vishwajit Sahu, Department of English, then Megha Agarwal, Department of Business Management. Ramendra, it would have been nice had they made an appearance for the just for a record's sake, at least, it's all right then. But the third prize is again shared by Ashwini Priyadarshini and Utkal Keshari Mahapatra of Department of Mathematics and Education, respectively. So these are announced in absentia. I congratulate all the winners, and the spirit of vigilance perhaps must go on, maybe through various types of participation there. I thank Ramendra as Dean of Students Welfare. I think, Parita, can we ask Professor Prasad for winding up?
Good afternoon, invited guests and institutional participants. It was indeed a great afternoon of learning. Dr. Akshay Rao has summarized very succinctly the need for ensuring that public institutions perform the job that they are assigned to. Therefore, the entire sequence of developmental activities hinge upon the honesty and capability of public institutions. I think that's the hallmark of this opening remark, and we will do well by remembering. Then he also mentioned about how vigilance is the harbinger of vibrant nations, whether it is macro institutions or micro institutions. Taking us forward, he gave us three important components of vigilance. One is that of procedures. What kind of systems we have put in place, whether it is governmental organizations, non-governmental organizations, any institution that is delivering public goods. So it is important that we benchmark the standards through procedures that need to be followed and not compromised. So that important has been related. And this demands checks and balances, which we need to constantly renew. So it is important for us to remember that checks and balances don't come automatically, but we have to build the capacities. Then he also mentioned very importantly, especially for the students, that it's the outcome that is important. You have done 1, 2, 3 activities. What has been the outcome? So measuring the outcomes is an important component. What cannot be measured is not worth looking again. Then the third component is one of consciousness.
how conscious you are is important. While we can assert our rights, let us also alert ourselves about the responsibility. That's the primary message that he delivered to us. So the state of mind is very important for us. And we need to see that distortions don't occur. He made reference to one important problem of how prosperity brings corruption, how development brings corruption, a point that the Vice Chancellor has also tagged in this discussion. So we should not look at the negative aspects of development and focus more on that. If there is some corruption that is still taking place, then we have to build systems of right to information and transparency. To drive home the point, Mr. Rao has taken the example of different types of institutions. So smaller the institution with lower the resources, there is need for higher because you have to make use of this sparse resources. That's very important for us. Then we move on to the other invited speaker, Sri Dash. And he also emphasized on the transparency part of it. And more importantly, he put a dilemma before us. It's a catch-22 situation. That if you want prosperity, corruption cannot be far behind. So he quoted examples of China, India, and other countries, and we are amidst non-democratic institutions, yet we are performing well. So the lesson we draw from that it is possible to do it, and then there can be a distorted scenario. 67% of the Chinese have been suffering from one or other type of corruption, but then they are based on a very high scale of economic growth. So therefore, they can exist side by side, but they should not correct our moral stuffs. That is what we learn. Then there is also this point that Mr. Dash mentioned. If there is prosperity, there is bound to be corruption. So he took the example of Tamil Nadu, and he rated that as the poorest state within a country in terms of election ethics. So it's very poor management because of corruption. At the same time, he says Tamil Nadu people are very informed people, very high human development index. So this is the paradox. So we need to win over this and see. It doesn't mean we should reduce our HDI, but we must reduce the corruption. That is what important is. So he closes with the value system that we need to promote, not only when you are grown up, but I would like to add that it should start from the school. There's no point in catching people after they have gone through the schooling system. So honesty is what he has placed, and then he quoted very succinctly the thinking of Plato. And he says only wise men should rule. And there's a reason for that. That you will be able to put all your resources and see that the objective is served, and socializing the people to the objectives of the organization, to the objectives of the institutions, to the objectives of the country is very important. To us, this is very important to be able to keep it as a democratic institution. Otherwise, he was fearing that will be dubbed as a banana republic where institutions become pliable. And I would like to conclude by saying that we have got enough food for thought and we have learned many lessons from the reflections of Mr. Akshay Rao, Mr. Dash, and Mr. Raj. Then I move on to thank Professor Palita, who's been steering this program this afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Palita. Then we also have Dr. Roy, who has been working hard for about a week to put resources in place and contacting people. I was a little worried that people were not coming forward. And as always it happens, Akshay Rao is the man who bails us out. So he took the initiative, and that is well done. Then there are many others, Professor Ramendra and other assistants who made this function very lively one. And lastly, I would like to thank the students for showing interest because they have to carry the mantle forward. We have had our times and we are in the twilight, but it is these young students who should carry the mantle of transparency, honesty, and see that institutions are governed in the best possible way with principles of accountability and transparency. And lastly, I would like to also thank the people who have conceived this day as a vigilance day, and throughout the week we have had one or other activity. And thank you so much. And lastly, as we follow our own ethics, our VC always says, "Don't thank me first, but at least let me thank you last." Thank you, Professor Ram.
Okay, this meeting is closed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Summary you have made.
But okay. Yeah, it is good. Well said.